Hi, this is Di, the bass playing mom, and today I'm responding to your comments on my video, flat versus round wound strings. Les Tat Mac says, flats just sound so sexy. I haven't really thought of my strings that way, but it sounds like that person has an opinion. What do you think? Down in the comments below, I'd love to hear your feedback. Do you think that they have more sex appeal? Gear repairs and rants. I only have two basses currently. My number one is an Epiphone Pro 4 Thunderbird, which I use Ernie Ball round wound 50 to 105 for attack and modern tones. My number two is an Epiphone EB3. I use tape wound flat nylon D'Addario. They give me a very vintage but clear tone, more muted but still have a wonderful different tone. Both basses are set neck and long scale, and both cover a lot of different genres of music. Gear repair and rants. That sounds like a good title for a channel, doesn't it? I use the flat nylons, but I didn't like the feel of them. They feel a lot different than regular strings. But it seems like a good approach to have one bass with one kind of strings and one bass with another. How about you? Do you have two basses? Do they have different kinds of strings? Let me know. Hugh Dalton says, currently play on round wound strings, tried nylon but found them to be dull. I love the punch and grit of round wounds. I have to agree. I thought that nylon strings do sound kind of dull. What do you think of nylon strings? Should one of my basses have nylon strings? I do have more than two basses. Let me know. Miguel Garcia says, currently I use D'Addario round wound super light 40 to 95 gauge on my bass. Tell me about gauge. I have not paid enough attention to gauge. Usually when you're getting short scale strings, you don't have that many choices. So let me know what you think about the different gauges of strings. Bass 6300 says, thanks for the nice video comparing the two types of strings. I like to use flat wounds on my hollow body basses and round wounds on everything else. I haven't thought about that. I have an acoustic bass. I'm not sure what kind of strings would be best on that. Art Coates says, I play pressure wounds. JD Super Brights are my second favorite so far, but sound completely different. Thinking about trying flats soon. If Super Brights is in the title, I would think they're extremely bright sounding string. Have any of you ever used Super Brights? Helena Vera says, the flat sound actually brighter on my headphones. There might be just a tad more mids on the rounds. I play round, but I have a set of thick flats on my practice bass at home to make me work harder. Thick flats, that looks like a workout for your fingers, isn't it? Do you guys do finger workouts? This is complete distraction. But when my kids were in high school, one of the kids that I knew was playing bass. And I said, oh, how do you like it? And he goes, well, I really want to get the calluses on my fingers, so I've been burning them. Not the kind of working harder that I was thinking of. Can you imagine? He was like burning the calluses on his fingers so that, ugh. Bass players are weird. Frederick King says, I used La Bella nylon flat wounds on my Carvin fretless bass. They tend to give a warmer sound and are very gentle on your fingerboard. I also use a jazz bass with round wounds, and the music director of my church pushes flat wounds big time because they cut down on finger sound or on that screech you hear when you slide your hand around the neck. I absolutely refuse to put flats on my J bass, so I compromised by tuning the tone down and plucking closer to the bridge to create a flatter sound. The round wound strings on your black bass sound flatter than the flat wounds, in my opinion. Were they old strings? Okay, I didn't think about it, all right? So Frederick King is calling me out, and he is right. They're a zillion years old. I didn't even think about it. I should have used a newly strung bass and for the round wounds as well. I should have had brand new round wounds so you could really tell the difference. He got me. I guess when I remake this video in 2 or 3 years, that's what I'll do. I'll make sure I have brand new strings. Frank Bassist says the Fender P with flats and the Jazz with round wounds works great for me. Nice video as always, Di. Thank Frank. Frank, you have to be like one of my first subscribers when I changed over to a bass channel. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, this used to be a vlog channel. I still have a vlog channel somewhere. I haven't posted on it in 100 years. Electron to Kim says, I'm just starting to consider sound in Sound of Sounds. At first I read that and I thought I was reading it wrong, but then I read it and it made perfect sense, which is probably more troubling. But yeah, obviously Electron to Kim is starting to think about how the sound of a bass sounds in the sounds with the other room. That's what I'm thinking. What do you think sound in Sound and Sounds means? Jesse Phillips. I play worship music mainly and I have a 5-string with both flat and round wounds. I use the flat sound strings on the EAD strings and then have round wounds on the low B and the high G, so when I play a lick or drop low, there's more bite. Great video. A guitar will have more than one kind of string on it. They'll have nylon strings for certain ones and metal strings for the other, but I never thought of combining them on the bass. That is amazing. What a great suggestion. Please let me know if you've ever thought of that. Oh, and there was a reply to Jesse's post. Dean M03 says, that's a great idea. I play a 5-string. I'll have to try that. That was a really creative idea. Jesse Phillips has 3,500 subscribers, and it's probably for good reason because he's got good ideas. Tanglang Fa says, my favorite bass by far is my Squier Jaguar short scale. I wanted to buy a second one just to put flats on it, but they stopped making them. I may put flats on mine and upgrade the pickups because the bridge pickup is notoriously weak. I only really like rounds at home. I mostly like the blues. And in my band at the hospital, we mostly play Christmas music for the annual party, not solo-filled jazz. I wish I was an animator. I would draw out the whole thing, having Tangling Fa playing at the hospital, and the drummer gets quiet because that means bass solo. The long, wandering jazz bass solo in the middle of the hospital would be amazing. Jeff Bridges says, I put Roto Sound round wounds on my Fender Mustang. I had flat wounds on my Guild long scale back in the 80s. They both have their place. That's why we need more than one bass. I have a Joni Mitchell concert with Jaco Pastorius on bass. He sure was great. I like the bass on old country music songs, folk, classic rock, and blues. I like your coverage of your bass playing experiences too. Keep up the good work. Aw, that's very nice, Jeff. Country music bass. I do love some Johnny Cash. That's my kind of country. Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash. Like, I like old school country. But I do like the idea that you would use a different kind of string depending the style of music that you were playing. Let me know down below if you play a certain kind of music and what kind of string you think fits that style of music. And finally, Jalen Fuller says, both has its place. I had a Fender Mustang PJ with flat wounds. I don't remember the brand because I barely play flats and it came with the bass, but it had a deep sound which gave a synth upright sound, but did lack the mids that I get on my round wounds. But I think it is mostly like those strings itself and not all flats. I heard that some flats give great mids similar to rounds. Yeah, I guess the mids would really be the reason that you play round wounds in church, is to get the mids out. So yeah, let me know. Are there some flats that have good mids? I would really like to hear about that. Anyway, that rounds out the comments that I've gotten on that video. If you have a comment to add or an opinion about rounds versus flats, please go ahead and leave it in the description. Obviously, I read every comment. I have not been so good at replying to every comment. It's a long story. It involves PTSD. Can you get PTSD from the comment section? I really appreciate every single one of these comments. It's well thought out and has actually opened my eyes to using flats on more occasions. So if you haven't seen it already, here is that video on flats versus round strings, and then down below is a video that YouTube picked out just for you.